Hi, I'm Rob Hatch, and you're watching How I Use That. Today, we're sitting down with Paul Sokol, owner of BePro, to talk about Trello, which is a lightweight project management tool, but I'm guessing Paul's going to show us some tricks and tips for how he uses that. In this show, that's exactly what we want to do. Interview entrepreneurs, small business owners, and not get necessarily a tutorial for how to use an app, but how they use the app to manage their business. So I'm hoping you'll have some walk away with some ideas for how to use Trello. So let's get started here.
Yeah, I like it.
Hey there, Paul. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. You were definitely tops on my list for people who use things in clever and interesting ways. So I knew you'd have something to share with when it comes to Trello and how you use that. But real quickly, if you just sort of tell me what you do, what your business is, before we jump right into learning more about Trello.
Yeah, so over here at BePro, we specialize in automation and advertising. So marketing automation, but as you and probably your listeners know, you can use automation everywhere in the business, not just marketing automation. But that's what we do over at BePro. We're a boutique agency that gets things.
Oh, I lost you there for a second. Hopefully you're still there. I'm going to try and pull Paul back in. Hopefully it's not on my side. Paul had a few technical issues apparently, and his machine shut down, so he's getting on another machine. So we're going to be joining back in just a short little bit. While we're waiting for Paul to rejoin us, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of the things that we're doing here with this show. One of the things I'm trying to do here with the show is to really explore some of the apps that people use in their everyday experience of managing a business. I came across a new app that I'm playing around with right now called Dscript, which is one of those video editing. It's actually a video editing and audio editing software. Really clever, and I'm looking forward to doing a show about that. But what was really clever about it, for those of us who are not super skilled at running podcasts or video shows and things like that, or just trying it out for the first time, one of the things that people do is, they record them and publish them later. Oftentimes, and I do this myself, you say filler words like and one of the things this cool software Dscript does is it turns your video into a transcript, a word transcript, and then you can search and find all the filler words, and it edits them out of the video or audio. It's really, really clever, but it turns it into basically a Word document, and the editing process for a video is just like a Word document. You can grab entire blocks of text and move it around. One of the things that we also like to do is encourage some comments. If you happen to be live, you can. I see that we've got one or two people who are watching. Certainly leave a comment and let us know you're here. If you have questions as we're going along, I will make sure that we feed them to Paul as it happens. And we're just going to wait another minute or two for him to be here. The other thing that I'd love for folks to do, if you happen to have an idea for an app that you use in your business, something that you find, and I'm talking more about operational stuff. There's lots of things that you can use, but operational, hey, we got a feline.
Oh man, talk about Murphy's Law, huh?
Funny
We
thing.
were doing great.
One of the things that that happened just before we went live is I dumped an entire glass of water, and then somehow that affected Paul's computer and shut him down. I wish we had Chris and Carrie's feline invasion banner to bring in.
Yeah, this is Winston. He thinks I'm here to be hanging out with him because usually we're not in the downstairs. So
Winston's a great name. So why don't you share your screen? Remember, and we'll get going. And I brought Paul in to walk us through. So Paul is the owner and founder of BePro, and he is going to show us today how he uses Trello, which is when I look at project management, I always got confounded by, not confounded, but it just, everything seems so heavy and date driven, and there's so many parts and pieces that managing the software almost became an entire task in and of itself, or it took as much time as doing the actual work. It took me away from doing the work, and I found the constraint of the software. But Paul is using Trello, and it's about the only project management tool that I've ever considered really using very, consistently, because of that. It's lighter weight. It doesn't force you into certain formulas, but I want you to show us how. I'm going to share your screen and have you show us how you use it.
Take two. Okay, so as you mentioned, Trello is a project management system at the end of the day. And so basically, we have organized it. We have different boards based on the different parts of the business. And so we'll look at all these boards here. And then the cards themselves, we almost treat it like a sales pipeline, where like each card has its own like next action date or due date, and that helps us determine when we need to be looking at things, especially stuff that's out there in the future.
I'm gonna stop. I know I don't want to get too deep into the how Trello itself is set up, but the boards and the cards. So these each box here, each column is essentially a board. No, those are the cards.
Oh, right? This is a board. This is a board which contains lists, and then the lists contain cards.
Great.
And then we use
board,
and then
list,
each card. Yeah, that's kind of the hierarchy of it. And then within the card itself, you can have people attached to it. We use a lot of deep linking in here. So, for example, yesterday I was supposed to do the product line reports for February, but I didn't. But basically, we use the checklist function, especially for habits, things that we do a lot. Like this is a monthly habit. We have a reporting that we do on how the stuff is selling. So we use this card to keep track that, are we doing this? It's the governance of it. And then this is the procedure itself. So here's how to actually perform this update.
Gotcha. So you've got the Trello is feeding you kind of like top level stuff. This is the stuff that we need to do. It's a checklist, and then there's a link directly to the thing that walks you through the procedure.
Yes, we're huge fans of deep links, especially when it comes to customer fulfillment and getting projects done. So you'll see how this can be really, really powerful once we start to look at those pieces here. But this due date is how we track our work. And know what we should be working on, because Trello has great filtering abilities, and I'm a big fan of shortcut keys, as you know. So if you press F to the filter, you can now look at stuff. Okay, what's overdue? What's due in the next day? What's due in the next week? So we have this, and then there's also a calendar view as well, which can kind of help you with planning as well. So if we just want to look at the overdue stuff, okay, there's just this one thing that slipped through the cracks, but in general, we can look and see, hey, we should be starting our competitive analysis next week. We try to do a big one annually.
Now, this is a for your company. This is one of the routines that you have that you do just for your company, not necessarily your clients.
Correct. This is exclusively the research and development function of the business, developing offers and maintaining them. And so that's actually, you can see that's how the lists are broken down. We have the habits that we do. So right now, the only habit that's at least distinct for us is the monthly reporting. And then we have the development that we're doing, and then the things that we have in maintenance. So there's not really any products in maintenance right now, but the competitive analysis is part of that. So
I want to pause here for a second, because so you've taken us into something I think is really often overlooked. I mean, people have sales pipelines and things like that, but we don't often, as entrepreneurs, we spend so much time doing the work for our clients once we get them, that we don't often have a regular habit of revisiting sort of where are we, how are we, how are we doing our outreach, how are we revisiting, like you said, a competitive analysis, how often do we need to do that? And you're using Trello for kind of this, how do I stay competitive? How do I make sure that all the things that feed my business are getting done along the way, rather than constantly getting caught up in the, well, I just happen to get another client, so I got all that work to do, and you're making time. So you've got a board exclusively for business development and growth as a small business, and it's two employees, right?
Yeah, that's it. 2 full-time employees, me and Brina, the 2 co-founders over here. And so you can see she's on some stuff here. So for example, she's in the middle of doing the roadmaps, which by the end of the month, they need to be done. But she's working on those for the current and the future product line, as well as the competitive analysis. The other thing too is we have a done column per year, so we can kind of look at our, what did we do? Look back on it. It's not too impressive for offers. When you look at the project, the client fulfillment, lots of cards here. And then we, of course, have a backlog. And for us, the distinction is if there's a due date on it, it's something that we're actively working on. Otherwise, remove the due date and put it in the backlog. And we may never get to it. But if we're ever running out of stuff to do, hey, we could put some paid campaigns in the marketplace. Maybe, why don't we do the Keep Cookbook? Start pointing our content stuff at that.
So this is it reminds me of something I was just talking about a couple nights ago on one of our owner insider webinars, was this idea of there are projects that hit me, ideas like, wow, I really should do that. And those should do that's really start to stack up. Like, I should create that cookbook that you just said. I really should look at whether or not we should move and change platforms, and all those should start to pile up. And honestly, as an entrepreneur, I get overwhelmed, and I think I'm not doing enough, and it takes an emotional toll on it, if I'm honest. And instead of just putting them on a list, what I've been doing, and here's where I'm going with what you're doing, is I have this sort of yes, no, not right now. I look at the idea and I decide, is this something that deserves my attention? And if it's a yes, then it goes on the list and I start to work on it. If it's a no, then that's fine. It doesn't, and I've decided, and it's off. And the not right now is me laying things out like a couple months ahead. I have every month, the first Monday of every month, I review my not right now pile. And that's what this backlog is, essentially a not right now. But if you've got some time, you can pull from that. So it's a good idea that warrants attention, but it's not right now.
Yeah. It's there's a really, I think it's accredited to Steve Jobs. It's some kind of quote that's really, popular among product developer, product manager types. And it's something to the effect of like, you have to say no to 1,000 great ideas so you can say yes to one great idea. And that's kind of what this backlog is. Like, yeah, the Keep Cookbook's a great idea. I'm just going to, take the book I already wrote and do it for keep, and we know it'll sell, and, whatever. There's benefits there. And is it in alignment with like what the company's product, what the vision is for the company and the roadmap that we're going? Is that in alignment with like competitively what we're seeing here? So instead of just doing like busy work, like being focused, because like there's no doubt that like that would be a great media move, and not right now. and maybe we never get to it, and that's okay.
Right. But it's there for safekeeping, which is what I love too. It's not clogging up your to-do list. It's not part of what you're doing. You've prioritized things, but it's good enough to keep around, but it hasn't reached and again in alignment with your business, but it's not, you know, it doesn't rise to the level of something I need to keep doing over or need to put into my funnel right now or my project management.
Exactly, because it doesn't show up in the workflow, in the day-to-day workflow. It's like, here, I'll show you. Let's use.
Yeah, I'd love to see your daily workflow and kind of
let's look at the marketing board here. So we aren't a big enough organization to have sales on its own board, but if we were orthodox in our belief of how business works, there would be a distinct marketing board and a distinct sales board. We combined them for now until we need a distinct one. So we have our marketing habits as well as our sales habits, because excellence is a habit. And so that's why the habits are always the focus on the far left of the board. They're like, always got to be doing it here. So like today, got to do some sales activities. This morning, I was working on this blog post. So for example, workflow, right? So I was supposed to work on this today. I've got the draft that I was working on linked up here. I have it was a case study, so here's the plans that we used. And then for blogs, we actually have a toolkit attached to any blog card. So here's the link to the login. Here's Perry Marshall's readability tool to make sure we're writing at a 7th grade reading level. Here's two different tools to research hashtags. And then here's the Infusionsoft opportunity that we actually track our time in, so we can get revenue per logged hour metrics and things like that. So
this goes back to the deep links that you were talking about, yes. Right? You know, yeah. and honestly, you know, ties into really setting this up so that it has everything you need, or you know, as I love to say, you are using it to put success in your way. You have everything, so when you're clicking on that, all of the links that you need, the logins are, you know, it's going to populate automatically, and there you are. Mm-hmm. And it's all supporting the habit. It's as though you've built a little assistant, not just, you know, okay, here's the task, and I'm going to move this piece of text that says what I'm supposed to be doing, from doing to hand it off to waiting for to done. You have it completely supported by all of the resources required. They're all right there at the ready. Even
the checklists as well. So the content here, in fact, I created the draft and attached it this morning. So there you go. This kind of the general checklist items you want to go through. Once the content is done, the other side of content is syndication. So then we have, here's how we syndicate it. First thing is put it in our master asset library, and then post it, boost it, share it individually, broadcast an email if we can. In fact, in this case, because it is a case study, get quote from Jameson. We want to make sure that the client gets to give their 2 cents on that. So there you go. So today I knew that I had to sit down and write this blog post, and all I did was open the card, and I could immediately start going. And when I'm done, I log the time immediately, which I haven't done yet. And there's also governance too. There should be overlap here. So this is the opportunity for tracking the actual work, because what we do is in the note itself, we have a custom time tracking field.
Gotcha.
That's how we calculate all of this here. So for example, whenever we do,
while you're pulling that up and explaining that, I do want to point out that you've taken us now into Keep, and not, or formerly Infusionsoft, but now Keep, and not into Trello. But
the point is that these are aligned. This has an next action date of the 1st, as does the project tool. So actually, it should have been today, the 2nd. But that's where the governance comes into play, and that's where somebody who's in the fulfillment enablement role, you know, or even marketing, you know, marketing manager, right, sales manager, they can make sure that, like, hey, listen, if this has a due date of Friday, is the opportunity, if it's relevant, you know, in the right space, or is it behind? So
take me back a little bit, Paul. I mean, the way you've got this set up is phenomenal, you know, and I want to emphasize the deep links, and I love the fact that you call them habits as well. But how did you get here? right? What was the process where you, did you just sort of build this on the fly? As you were going, you're like, I really need this. Do you have a sort of process for going, I keep clicking on this link. Why don't I just put it here? Or did you kind of sketch out the workflow? I often talk about just sketch out the way that you work on a piece of paper and then build the app. Don't look for the app first, but think about what you want to happen and then look for an app that you can do that with. Because I am pretty much, software agnostic when it comes to these things. So
Right.
How did you start? Like, where did that begin? That, how did you go from where you were to here?
Yeah. So we hit a point in shortly after we started in 2016. So probably late 2016, early 2017, we hit a point where we needed something. We needed to formalize our project management. It was still kind of startup-y and all in between your ears and that kind of stuff. And if I got hit by a bus, there goes all the projects. So because it's just me and Brina, we wanted to develop a system that, not because we don't want to, but that we don't have to talk to each other, or at least there's minimal repetition in the communication. So for example, what was it? For example, Facebook posts, right? We have a habit to once a week schedule our posts for the week. And so Brina has to do that through Buffer for LinkedIn now. So it's kind of, not just a once a week thing. So with this card, I can see how are things going. I can go to the Facebook calendar. Has it been published? I can look in the Google Drive and see, do we even have the assets created already? So there you go. Here's two so two of these haven't posted yet because they're about the case study that you just saw earlier.
Right.
So again, there's not an, hey Brina, what's up with the posts? Like, I can do my own digging. I'm empowered to do that, and the system's set up in such a way, and we have agreements. Unlike the Google Drive is set up the same way that Trello is set up, the same way that everything is. It's all based on these distinctions of the business stack, which I think maybe you and I have spoke about before, but offers, marketing, sales, fulfillment, operations, finance, and people. The Trello matches the Google Drive. So how we
walk me through that again. Walk me through those stacks again, just nice and slow. I want to emphasize them because I think we get, I don't know about you, clearly not, but my tendency is to almost overfile, right? Or over categorize, but you simplified this. So show me, so offers, marketing. Yeah. Walk me through that.
Ops, people, and finance. So this is what I call business stack. It's a business model I've been testing for many years, trying to break it, and it continues to hold true. It's a holistic business model that's centered around the customer experience. So in fact, I should be able to pull up this should be a recent.
And again, we're kind of out of Trello here for a second, but
I think
it.
Trello,
when you're looking holistically, or when you're setting Trello up to serve you, it's because it's based on these sort of this business stack.
Yeah. So the theory is that the customer receives your offer, whatever you're selling, through the customer journey of marketing, selling, and fulfilling it, and then that's what they get. Behind the curtains, how you do it is the operations of how do you market, how do you sell, how do you fulfill. So this conversation today is an operational conversation, Rob. How do we write our marketing blog posts? How do we do sales? How do we fulfill? And then you have the people systems, which is where, mission statements, vision, your hiring, inspiring, and firing journeys, all that kind of HR stuff. And then at the base of it's finance and legal, because finance pays for the people, pays for the ops, all that. But it's all looked at through the lens of the customer and their journey. So really, they just receive your offer and how they get it. They don't really get to see under the hood here. And
sure.
And that's why there's a term
that's
that I
all
call
supporting it.
Operations, where usually it'll be real shiny all up on front, but you look under the hood and it's like a a trailer park home that's falling apart with glue and tape. Like the slop-orations is very common. I'm sure you've probably seen that.
Yeah, I've probably lived it.
So we're stand against that. And so
all right, so that's kind of tied into how you got here. One, it's based on the communication that you and Brina were having, that you found yourself, checking in or repeating conversations that you didn't need to. And if you could create sort of an operational flow that supported everything, that where you didn't have to waste time or energy with those sort of where is that, how's that going conversations, and could focus on either, doing your own selling and getting your own marketing and sales stuff going, or supporting your clients.
Mm-hmm. That's
exactly. And why Trello? Why did you choose Trello is part of my question too.
We chose Trello because it's widely supported. It's stable. It has a lot of the functionality that we need for project management specifically. So we've learned there's a distinction between a task and a project, and habits are kind of like an ongoing task. So, it's like a subclass of a type of task. So for task management, we had Infusionsoft, which is fine, the one-off, do these. But we needed a project management thing specifically that can do things like, attaching attachments and having comment threads and assigning people and ways to chain stuff together and get reporting and filtering and this kind of stuff. And so I had experience in Trello playing around with it when I worked at Infusionsoft in product many years ago. So I was like, hey, let's try this. And we tried a couple of different tools. And this was I think because the visual nature of it and how robust it is one of the reasons we went for. Plus, it's free. Like, this is all the free version for right now.
Nice.
They've not paid a cent to overhead in the 5+ years we've been doing this.
I'm a big fan of free, and I've shared the link, which is, in all candor, is a referral link for Paul, and he doesn't get any financial benefit to that, but he gets some sort of weird credits for referring people, which is kind of cool.
Paid Trello credits, so thank you. If
there you go.
But
so tell I want to go back to how you started and think back if you were starting up a small, let's say, marketing consulting company. Not that you want to encourage your competition, but if you were starting up a small marketing consulting company, if you're out there and you're a solopreneur, where would you start with Trello? Like what not so as not to get overwhelmed.
Well, I would not start with Trello. I would start getting clear on more foundational infrastructure stuff. So, like, are we using Google Drive? Are we using OneDrive? Like, where's our file storage? Are we using a NAS, like, that's in the office and it's a network storage? Like, that's something important to figure out, because you're going to be linking to these different assets. Plus, if you're an agency and you're going to be fulfilling on client stuff, you probably need to figure that stuff out anyway. So I would actually make sure that you can deliver consistently, like legit, honestly consistently, for like to the point where like you can distinctly tell, first we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this, and here's our worksheet for this, and here's the stuff we use for this, and here's like this vendor. Like, once that is distinctly clear, then you're in a place and mature enough as a fulfillment, your fulfillment muscle is built up to the point where you can go into a project management tool and not just get distracted.
Perfect.
Because when you know what your actual process is, then you're just building a tool to fit your process. It's like Infusionsoft or Keep. It's like a sub-putty that you can wrap around your business to fill the gaps. Trello is the same way, but it's filling your project management gaps. So I see a lot of people run into problem by trying to manage projects before even studying or trying it themselves. Like studying project management, or like doing it on their own with like paper and sticky notes and like figuring out what works and what doesn't work. They just hop into a tool, get distracted by all the cool crap, and then they never actually get anything done. And they collapse being busy with being productive. But honestly, I don't spend a lot of time in Trello because I open the card that I need to and then go do what I'm supposed to do. I don't, spend a whole lot of time in here.
Now there's time where I will intentionally sit and clean the cards up and whatnot, but
like before a show, for example.
Switching thing. It's like a director. Like, you're supposed to work on this today. Like, for example, acquire guest post spots, Rob. How I use that. Have we gone live yet? Can I check?
We are totally live.
Cool. So I'll go do some more guest post spot activity next week.
I love it.
And there you go.
I love that advice, because again, I think we get so caught up in what an app can do, all the promise of it, and we haven't taken the time to think about what we want it to do, how we want it to shape things. And people chase apps all the time, productivity apps. And I often talk about Google Calendar, for example. Google Calendar has so many features in there that, we will go talk about deep links. We will go chasing down, oh wait, what was the, who is it I'm talking to again? Or I might just, enter Paul as a meeting. But if I just enter Paul at 1 o'clock, then I've got to go find, maybe find your phone number in the last email, figure out what we were last talking about. When Google Calendar has lots of features for how to, serve all that up to us. And that's what those deep links are about. You're using Trello. It's serving up everything that you need because you understood your process, what's behind it, what's the foundation, as you were talking about, of the
Yes.
workflow in business. And that those decisions were made. And now Trello can bring them up to you and just say, here it is.
Yes. Well, again, everything needs to work together. So Trello and Google Calendar support each other. So we have a scoreboard that I need to be updating every week, right? There's a weekly reminder to update the scoreboard, which links right to the Trello card. And then
Nice.
me what I need to go ahead and do, which in this case, okay, I need to do the monthly update for March and then the first week of updates, right? So I got to update the little dashboard widgets once a month, and then I can report on this, right? And then once I report, and then there's even the procedure for how to actually update the scoreboard. Where do you go? What stats do you look at? These kinds of things. So there's built-in governance too, because it's on the calendar and it's also in Trello. So they should be duplicating each other, right? Or like whenever I'm running payroll, like I got to run payroll. So cool. Here's the 2021 payroll card for paying internal employees. So there's the, here's the procedure for it. Here's the op stock that we need. Here's the annual habit of how to properly generate a new payroll sheet for the new year. So that way it fits in with the rest of the system. And then cool. So I'm going to have to run the first payroll on March 4th, which is what's in the calendar. So everything feeds everything. There's governance. Nothing lives in a vacuum. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. I've intentionally left this overdue because somehow the 2018 federal unemployment, I never reported on that. So I need to catch up on that. And I guess I learned about it on the 3rd, which is when I would have set that date. So again, same thing, operations. What are the operational habits? What are the people habits? Right now it's just the weekly and the monthly team meetings. So cool, here's the governance to make sure that this stuff kind of happened. Which we just revamped how the meetings worked. So we didn't actually have them for January, but we're starting them in February. We're finishing it today. And then here's the financial habits, arguably the most important one. So like the finance reporting, are we doing this monthly? For the tax habits, are we, are we saving weekly so that way monthly we can remit the payroll taxes? So quarterly we can do the state and the federal withholding reports and the UI, and then so that way annually we can do our stuff. The other thing with these Trello cards is sometimes there's like an annuals or an annual reset kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where does it live? Annual reset. So at the end of the year, you clone the card for next year, and now I've done my job. It resets all the checklists. So now I make a new card for 2022, and it says, okay, cool, go ahead and clone a new invoice op sheet that you need for the new year, and then remove last year's attachments, but keep the procedures. Okay. So now in 2022, I'll get rid of any stuff that's attached for this year and make a new one. And now we're back on the ball, and there's nothing missed.
What I love about this, these are things, larger companies get to offload, right? There are departments that handle these things. As a solopreneur or, a two-person shop, this all has to happen. It's all on you. And honestly, I'm guessing a lot of entrepreneurs, kind of kick the can on some of this stuff, and then it's a big crunch at a certain time to do it. I love how you've built them, and again, how you call them habits. And I guess I'm betting this took a while to develop. So, if you were starting out, one, you said you were encouraging people to think about the different aspects of their business, how things work, what are your steps and process and procedure. And the second part is kind of building the systems to support you as you encounter them. I think you were one of the folks who in the idea of filtering email, if you have to do it twice, it needs a system. I seem to remember, that being something that might have come out of your mouth at one point in time. Yeah. And this is one of those examples of, oh, wait a second, I found myself, I'm going to this place daily. And I'm going to this other place daily. Is there a way to pull those things together into a habit and a checklist that I can walk through with those deep links, and it serves up everything you need?
Yes. In fact, I'll show you another tool. If I was starting from brand new, I would actually do this. I would make a list of your habits based on their cadence. So you as a business, you want to start doing something like Trello. Cool. What are your daily habits? What are your weekly habits? What are your monthly habits? What are your quarterly habits? What are your annual habits? And then what are the ad hoc habits, just as needed? Like if we want to set up a new WordPress site, that is built, that's a checklist. We can offer that. We even have a procedure for how to add a procedure, which guarantees that if we identify a new procedure, it makes it into this system and Trello and the calendar. So that way it truly is integrated into the workflow and not just, hey, here's this new piece of crap that we want to do, and then nobody ever does anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. So I would start there and outline those procedures. And then once you're, again, really clear on that, then you can start pulling into Trello. And I would recommend having some kind of again, the distinction between the habits and what you're doing.
Love it.
So as far as fulfillment, you were talking about the daily stuff, right?
Yes.
We consider ourselves to be our own client. So for our own social media accounts, we put that on our fulfillment board. So that way it goes into the normal workflow of our clients. And this isn't just living on the marketing board. Like, no, we treat ourselves like our own client to get our own projects done. But for the daily stuff, like for example, Facebook, right? We've broken it down into a checklist, like you said. So for the community management, there's like 3 major steps. It's like check the inbox, check the messages, and then check for the engagement. And that's it. And then if you've done that, cool. And then there's even a spot here for community to-dos. So like if somebody bubbles up in a thread and they like need support, here's a place to ensure that there's governance, that it's actually somewhere in reality to get done. Because sometimes
stuff, man.
Just comment.
And also you've solved another problem with this too, which is going to, a lot of people, if they're working at home, they're on their own, they pop over to Facebook to do something, and 5 minutes later, they're completely lost because they don't have a reason to have gone there. And you're going in there with a purpose, with a checklist, a workflow to go through. It keeps you focused on what you need to do while you're there, and you're in and you're out and back to work much faster. So.
And we've even chosen our cadence too. So for example, Facebook and LinkedIn are our main things. We're checking those daily. But for something like YouTube that doesn't get as much love, it's a semi-weekly habit. We only do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays because the workflow itself is actually really simple, at least where we're at right now. We go to YouTube Studio, and then on the left, you go to the comments. And YouTube automatically shows you stuff you haven't responded to. So there you go. I've checked the YouTube channel, and now I can push it up.
We got stuff done today. we're getting stuff done for you.
Yeah,
as well.
no, you're not lying. There were no new comments, so there you go. You watched
Check it off the list.
You watched it live. And actually, I think this procedure probably needs an update. But basically, yeah, go to the studio, go through the comments and engage. If follow-up's needed, copy the URL, go to the main YouTube and put it under community to-dos, you know.
It's
I
love these little, they're checklists. We use the term action stacks, just to keep you focused and go through exactly what you need to do while you're there. Yeah. So we're gonna start to wrap up here, Paul. We got a little bit of late start with our technical difficulties, okay. but here we are now. Is there anything else? What's that?
I mean, that's pretty much it, man. There's 4 boards, and we have the same workflow. We use due dates, and we deep link to everything, and we try to not let stuff get behind.
It's really, I mean, I think that idea of using this with the deep links and serving up everything and making sure, even going back, we went outside of Trello a couple times to demonstrate, just, in that Excel sheet, for example, just what are your daily habits, your weekly habits, your monthly habits, quarterly, and so forth. And that was, I think, that alone, spending time in there to get really clear on what needs to be done and when, and then building your business, your management, using Trello to manage that process and serve up exactly what you need to get it done. So if you want to know more about Paul, you can go to BePro.events to learn about him and his company. If you're interested in checking out Trello, you can go to robhatch.me/Trello and check that out. And honestly, Paul, thank you so much. This went in all sorts of cool directions, and it was much more than I had anticipated and hoped for. It was really phenomenal to see how, what's beneath it all. So I'm grateful. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. I'm grateful for the chance to share it. I think this is the first time I've ever given like a real deep down and dirty, this is day-to-day how our business works. And we've shown all 4 boards. So like, that's the full scope of our business, people. That's what a 6-figure agency looks like.
That's cool.
It. So
awesome, man. Again, thanks so much. And I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Bye.